Perfect.
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Just as you know, busy and hardly
Yes,
have
yes.
a minute for free time, as I know you do too. So
Well, I appreciate you doing this with me.
yes, I'm glad we were able to finally
Yeah.
make it work.
All right. Well, as you know, our podcast, Live Right Tonight, we like to get different people on involved to kind of share their story, things like that to give kind of some other people some inspiration. So if you want to start by
Yes,
introducing yourself and like where you work, a little bit about yourself.
absolutely. So I know you know, but I'm Maciee and I've been in recovery for about 10 years now. Well, at least on the pathway, it's a
Right.
journey. So um I work at Serenity House Communities in Flint, and we're one of the only holistic places doing recovery coaching as well. So we're blending the holistic and Eastern medicine and with the recovery coaching. So
That's awesome.
yes, it's an amazing program, and I'm very excited to be a part of it. And it's just we're starting to get off the ground here. It's a completely new program that was developed by our executive director. Her name is Tara Marino, and
Okay.
she's had opened up the Serenity House almost 7 years ago. So
Awesome.
yeah, so she's been doing
Well,
it for a while, and
now you did say you mentioned like you are on the holistic approach. Do you want
yeah.
to elaborate on that a little bit to those of us who don't know what the holistic approach is?
Yes, absolutely. And even, there's a lot of kind of conflicting information about
Yeah.
stuff too. So, really what holistic is and what it stands for is addressing the person as a whole. So we're talking mind, body, spirit. We're not just talking about one aspect of things. Sorry, my son's coming in the
No, you're
room.
good.
Buddy. I love you, but I need you to go back out with daddy, okay? Yeah. Okay. I'll be on just a minute, baby. Mwah. Sorry. I
That's
thought I
all
had
good.
it locked. So yeah, in recovery as a mother as well. So
I know that
but
gets complicating.
yeah, oh yeah. But anyways, so holistic, like I said, we're looking at the person as a whole. A lot of times, in our Western idea of things, we like to chop things up, and we like to,
Yep.
just look at one aspect of somebody. You go to the doctor and they're gonna look at one aspect of you. You go to counseling, they just look at one aspect, and a lot of times it's not. Although it's helpful, and it's not like these things aren't good. They're definitely good, and I've been in counseling and stuff like that myself. So
Right.
I'm not talking bad about that kind of stuff. I'm just saying there's a piece that's been missing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not getting to the root cause of stuff. And that's what we really try to do. Try to get to the root of what's going on, because especially with addiction, there's a root cause to
Yes.
what's going on there. And we wanna address that, and um not, just heal the person ourselves. What we do is try to awaken that inner ability that everybody has to heal themselves. So
Mm.
it's not like you're going to somebody else and they're doing the healing for you. That's
Right.
not how that works, which is also kind of the idea that we have as well, right? We have a problem, we go to the doctor, they give us a diagnosis and a medication and send us out the door. And we're not really going, okay, so this might be going on with the person right now, but what has caused that?
Right.
And that is that key piece that for me and many other people that I know that has been able to, you know, stay along that path where we're
Yeah.
not, having a bunch of relapse events and things like that, because we're actually getting tools to try to help prevent that kind of stuff. And when you actually work on the healing of the issues, it just becomes easier and easier.
Right.
So,
Now I know I have mentioned before on like previous podcasts and things, we're kind of trying to tie in the different pathways to recovery, holistic
mhm.
being one of them. How would you say, like, what geared you to choose the holistic approach versus, your traditional NA or AA or things like
Right.
that? Like, what gravitated you to want to do it yourself? And now, obviously, teach other people and help other people with that.
Yes, because that's a huge passion of mine. So a lot of my addiction issues started in my teenage years. So like
Right.
13, I started drinking, I started smoking cigarettes, I started doing pills. Like it was just, I don't know what happened to me at 13, but I completely flipped.
Yeah.
And I started going downhill fast. So I've also had a lot of mental health stuff. They
Yes.
tried to diagnose me with bipolar at 14, and then out of therapy, or I guess conventional therapy, um, on and off medication. Like they were putting me on antipsychotics. I
Wow.
had a big problem with insomnia around the time I was 14, 15, to where my sleeping patterns were literally go to sleep at like 7 o'clock in the morning, stay asleep till 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and just do that all over again. So they were putting me on like sleeping medications. Like I've been on a lot of different medications and stuff throughout really my teenage years.
Yeah.
And I even did one of the 72-hour holds in a hospital when I was about 15, because I had a lot of suicidal thoughts, suicide attempts, self-harm, that kind of stuff. So and my parents, bless their hearts, they didn't know what to do.
Right.
So I was in a lot of that conventional therapy as a teenager. And although certain things helped, it was never like I still couldn't quite get out of that hole.
Right.
And I would revert back to things like drinking, taking pills, that kind of stuff, just to numb myself out, because I didn't want to feel how I was feeling, and I didn't know
Right.
how not to. And then I had, so I also, like a lot of people, I had some abusive relationships in that time as well. And I had a really bad breakup about the time I was 18. And I just I knew there was something in me that was like, we've got to do something about this,
Right.
or you're going to end up killing yourself.
Yep.
So I did one of the only things I knew how to do. I decided to throw myself into stuff and keep myself busy. So I got a job, and I decided to think about my future, and I got myself enrolled in school. And at first I thought I was going to do social work. But 2 semesters in, I knew that my mental health wasn't in a place that, like, it would have just reverted me back to those feelings. So
Right.
I decided to go to massage school, and I was about 20
Okay.
years old. So it was a huge catalyst for my actual
Right.
recovery. And what I can say about the holistic side of things is I I started putting myself in recovery without even realizing what I was doing,
Right.
because I just started moving towards the things that felt good and I knew were good for me. And then when you start moving towards stuff like that, the stuff you know is bad for you falls to the side. I was so sick of being sick. I've had a lot of physical issues too. I've had a lot of stomach issues that doctors were never able to help me with. I've dealt with endometriosis and migraines. Like, one thing that holistic taught me as well is that it's the mind body connection, right? If you're having
Right.
physical stuff going on, it's stuff that's going on mentally and in your energy field as well.
Right.
Now that I understand that, things they start in the mind and the energy
Yep.
field before they manifest into physical issues.
Yep.
So just understanding things like that. These are things that doctors don't talk about really, or many of them.
Right.
And, just simple starting to understand things like that. So when I got into massage school, I had no idea like what I was getting into and the things that it opened me up to. It opened me up to understanding the body, like how the body works.
And how we kind of like, I know, people go to a masseuse when they're feeling like tense or whatever to kind of like relax. So even starting out in that, you kind of learned, just on the massage part of it, even.
Yeah,
kind of got the ball
absolutely.
rolling with everything else.
Yes, it's very healing. And then the massage school I went to, so I went to Irene's Massology Institute out in Southfield, and they're an amazing school. They're a very well-known school, and
Awesome.
they're very clinical, but they're also have a lot of classes on energy and energy healing, and that's where I got introduced to Reiki. So I started taking Reiki classes and massage school, and I went into those types of classes like a bit skeptical myself because I didn't grow up learning about that kind of stuff. I was like, I wasn't saying, oh, this doesn't work, but I'm like, I don't understand how this works, so teach me. Like, I want to know. In the very first energy healing class that I took, I felt so much like I couldn't explain. And so it like really set that off for me. And I'm like, I need to know more about this stuff. So I took Reiki, all the Reiki classes, Reiki 1 through 3. I took healing and exploring auras. I took crystal healing, and I just like any energy class I could get my hands on.
Now, how would you describe, for like people that don't know, what's the best way you think to describe what Reiki kind of entails?
Right. Because there's also a lot of conflicting information about that as well. So at this point I've been doing Reiki for about 10 years now. And yes, it's amazing. And it's a journey. Like I am a Reiki master teacher level, but it's something you never stop learning. So but anyways, the way I kind of explain it to people is we do have an electromagnetic field around us. And it's really cool. Science is actually like really starting to realize this, and that it has an effect on us. And another thing that's really cool is you can look up, actually Beaumont Hospital has an entire Reiki program. Like it's really starting to get integrated.
A lot of people are starting to. That's awesome. I did not know that.
That's one thing that I thought was super cool too. So it's starting to get integrated in hospitals. A lot more people are learning about it. And the thing is, so if you go to a Reiki practitioner, like I said, it's not like you're just going to somebody and they're like doing this thing for you that you can't do for yourself. But when it definitely helps having that facilitation. And like me, like I still get Reiki treatments and stuff like that as well. Like it's just something that you continue to implement, because it can help having like that catalyst, right? That extra set there. Sometimes, even if you're looking for something, sometimes you need that extra set of eyes. So you just go to somebody that will be able to help you. And it kind of helps to break up those blockages that can be created in that electromagnetic field that we have around us. Another thing that I always tell people too is like emotions are energy, and we don't really think about it like that a lot of times. We haven't really been taught to think about that a lot of times, but so often we shove them down. We either don't know what to do with them or how to process them. And a lot of times, so another thing I deal specifically with is trauma, and helping people with trauma and helping it move out of the body. Have you ever heard of the book, The Body Keeps the Score?
No.
Okay, so it's a
Write
really,
that down.
yeah, it's a really good book. A lot of people have like know about it, and it's actually on Audible. I listen to
Okay.
Audible books because I don't have
Yeah,
so much time to just sit down and read, right?
for real.
Um, and it's not, so that book also, just so
Wait,
people
one more time.
know,
What's it called?
the body keeps the score.
Keeps.
And when you search for it, it should pop right up.
Awesome.
And for people that don't understand a lot about like energy or that kind of stuff, that doesn't matter with this book because he's actually a psychologist. So it's more on
Oh,
the
okay.
scientific aspect of things,
Right.
but it's how trauma changes the brain, how trauma gets stored in the tissue. And, these are all scientifically validated things.
Right.
And the energy side of things is starting to get validated more.
Right.
And it's so important to process those things and move them out,
Right.
because otherwise they keep making the decisions for us whether we realize it or not.
Right.
um
Kind of keep
and
that negative energy around once you get depleted and, just kind of refocusing and recentering to have like a fresh start, and I feel
yes.
like, with all the different pathways of recovery, that's why we're kind of trying to tie it in, for our listeners or viewers or whatever, that, there are things besides medication or
Hmm.
leadings, or because it doesn't work for everyone. Everyone
It doesn't.
needs to know that there is some sort of something out there for you. And as far as
Yeah.
like the energy thing goes, I have been realizing that it's starting to come out more in other little groups as well, that
Hmm.
that we do hold trauma in, our body and our energy and things like that. So okay, not to cut you off, the Reiki thing. So
Oh,
what
you're
else
fine.
what else about um you being able to do Reiki now? Like, how has that helped you in your recovery to help someone else? Kind of keep it
Right.
at the forefront, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. So first on my holistic journey, it started helping me with my physical stuff,
Okay.
with my stomach issues and that kind of stuff. And I was really just truly amazed at how it was able to help me physically, because I was in a lot of pain, a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was one of the first things that it started doing for me. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. And as I started learning about, like I said, that things starting in the energy field and manifesting physically, it was like just as I started working on myself more and as I started working on other people more, I could feel so much going on in my hands. And one of the really cool things too is you will realize that as you heal yourself, you're able to help others heal better,
That's
because we're all vibration. So
mhm.
essentially what you're doing as you're healing is you're raising your vibration. um and as you raise your vibration, it acts like a tuning fork, right? If you ting
Okay.
a tuning fork and you put it next to another one, it starts vibrating. So just by that's why they say, the greatest gift you can give to the world is working on yourself and healing
Right.
yourself. It all starts from within, and as you go within, you're able to help others outwardly more. I
Right.
mean, we all know you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
So as you start raising your vibration and you start clearing out some of these things that you've been holding on to that are just staying stuck in your tissue, you start clearing those out and you start bringing in room for more new energy, for new beginnings, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
It really helps you to be able to heal others more.
Right.
And you can say, like, I've been there too. Like, I've
Mhm.
wanted to die, and
Yeah.
it's not. The other thing I'll say about like the holistic and the healing journey is it's not easy. And I think that's why a lot of people kind of end up running from it. I mean, we like quick fixes. We want to take a pill to
Right.
make us feel better. We want, we want that quick fix. And the holistic journey, the journey of healing yourself from within
A long
is
one.
not it's not an easy one. You're gonna think you're losing your mind sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's something that you just continue to progress with, you know, like I still deal with anxiety and depression issues,
Right.
but do I do the things that I used to make myself feel better? No, because I know where that's going to get me. And the tools that I have now are able to help me in ways that, you know, like just medicating it out wouldn't
Wouldn't
do. Like
help. Right.
yeah, like you have to feel these things to be able to heal them. And it is a journey and it is a process. And that's why we have to be gentle with ourselves as well and kind of know those limits of when we need some self-care and when we need to be real with ourselves.
Right.
You know, it's about being honest with yourself. Um, and that's really hard for people to do sometimes too.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
you know, that's what's gonna really, you know, be the catalyst for that healing journey is the more you're honest with yourself and the more you can sit back and take a look at these things and go, okay, you know, this might have been my past. I might have made these choices in the past, or, you know, my life might be throwing these things at me right now, but you have a sense of peace within yourself because you know that it's just temporary anyway, and that, you know, this control we always try to have over things is
Yeah.
nothing but an illusion anyway. So, you know, you can kind of learn how to work within your emotions
Yeah.
with yourself a little bit better. And then, yeah, like I said, as you start having these self-realizations and healing these things within yourself, you're able to help others a lot more. It all has to start with us.
Now, would you consider like meditation and things like that part of that kind of approach as well, or something that someone could use, you know, maybe like hand in hand with the Reiki and like, you're certified in AcuDetox, correct?
Yeah, yes, I'm in the process. So I've got my 40 years and all of that completed. So I have to turn in a survey and stuff to the
Yeah.
NATA board to get the actual ADS title. But yes, I've worked the majority of the process through getting that
Now,
full on
how do you feel
certification.
like that is beneficial? Because I know that's been popping up a lot more as well. And a lot of people are
Yes.
like, what is this?
Right. I know, and some people can have an aversion to it because of
Yeah.
the needles, but you don't, if you're, you know, want to try it out but you're super nervous about the needles, or maybe you have a straight up needle aversion, there are bead and seed options too
Okay.
that go on the same points, and they basically serve as more like acupressure versus
Okay.
acupuncture. But yeah, that's been a super cool modality that I have been super excited to be able to learn.
Yeah.
So I know it might sound a little out there for some people, and again, I always kind of start out as a skeptic too. So the first time I had it done, I was just super curious. Like I didn't really know what to
Right.
expect. Um, and it's super powerful. And I loved taking the class because I got to learn so much of like the history on it. And AcuDetox has been really specifically tailored for people with addiction issues and in recovery,
Right.
although it is for the general public as well. Like you don't have to have substance use disorder to benefit from it, but it was around and has been around in so many rehabilitation clinics. And
Right.
when like going through the class, like looking at all of these statistics and like all of these reports from these different um addiction recovery agencies and like the benefit that it had on people as a whole, like it was amazing. And it's like, let's make this easily accessible for
Right.
people, you know, like it helped a lot in a lot of different clinics. And so for me personally, when I'm getting an AcuDetox treatment, um it kind of does what your body needs it to at the time. And
Right.
Reiki and a lot of these considered energy healing modalities are a lot like that. It might not be the exact same experience every time.
Right.
Sometimes I've had like a really blissful experience, and I feel like it helps me get into that meditative state a little easier.
Okay.
And that's absolutely considered holistic. Like meditation, it helps the mind, the body, the spirit. Like we
Yeah.
could go into all of the studies on meditation as well too, on how it helps heal the individual, how it can help heal the environment, and all that kind of stuff. We could do a whole Zoom meeting on just that. So yes, meditation is definitely considered holistic.
That's awesome.
And yeah, the AccuDetox for me will kind of help me get into that state a little easier.
Okay.
Sometimes I've had really big emotional releases from it. The very first day of my in-person AccuDetox class, I had the practitioner do a treatment on me, and I was feeling like totally fine before the treatment. And as soon as she stuck that needle into my liver point, I just started bawling. Like I just had this huge emotional release, but I needed it, like
Right.
that's not saying that
That
it was like a bad
cleanses.
experience. Yeah, I had to release that out of my body. I had a super crazy week all leading up to that. I had my first crisis situation on a Wednesday where I had to go up to the hospital and speak with somebody that had recently had an overdose event. Right from that, I went to UFAM where I
Oh,
saw
wow.
you. That was a lot for me. Like I
Yeah.
have a very hard time in big crowds. And as amazing as the event was, it was a
Overwhelming.
lot of heavy subject matter. There were
Yeah.
a lot of people up there talking about their stories or their stories from their children. And just after doing massage and all that all day and having my first crisis situation the day before that, I got really depleted, and I went right from UFAM to AccuDetox. So it was like, it was a release of all this stuff that wasn't even
Right.
mine. I'm very empathic, and a
Hmm.
lot of us are, though. I don't like how it's kind of that word's being thrown around, just like, oh, I'm so empathic. Oh, I'm so empathic. Like, well,
Right.
we all are. Okay. It doesn't necessarily mean like you're this super special person. Like,
Right.
we're all empathic. Some of us are a little more than others,
Hmm.
but so for me, it gets to me hard. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a great event, but it just was like all those things in a row, and she put the needles in, and I just started bawling my eyes out.
But did you feel
Um,
better at the end? That's what
yes,
matters.
yes, absolutely. I
Right.
definitely did. I could feel, once you kind of start getting in tune with these things in your
Hmm.
body, you'll be able, you can like feel it. So as much as I was crying, I felt this release and my body felt heavier. Like it really, those unprocessed things, it bogs us
Yeah.
down so much.
And I feel like a lot of people don't realize how
You don't.
draining, event after event after event, especially in early recovery or for anyone in recovery for that
Yes.
matter. We're so used to handling things in the wrong way that when everything kind of builds up, I feel like a lot of people feel stuck. Like, okay, I'm stuck holding this bag full of problems. How do
Yep.
we sort through it?
Exactly.
Things like
Yeah.
that. So,
And a lot of these tools have really helped me with feelings like that and
right.
processing things
And
like
you
that.
also at Serenity House, I know that you guys, run this type of holistic program, but you guys also offer like the peer recovery coaching as well, correct?
Yes. Yes, the peer recovery coaching is actually blended in with the holistic. So
That's
that's
awesome.
what's super cool about it. Our sessions are 90 minutes long. So we do
Okay.
the recovery coaching piece, and then it's a 90-day program. So for the first 4 weeks, you get recovery Reiki. For
Okay.
the next 4 weeks, you get AccuDetox. And then the 4 weeks after that, you get what's called EFT, or some people know it as tapping. And
Okay.
that's essentially tapping along different meridian points of the body to help release stuck emotions and stuff from the tissue.
Okay.
So you get all of those modalities in the 90 days. All of our groups and that kind of stuff are free. And you get to go home with with some healing techniques for yourself, and
There you too.
and some mindfulness. So yeah, we do Reiki groups throughout the week. We just started doing a Reiki with EFT on Tuesdays. We have Detox on Thursdays. We do also offer little meditation groups on Tuesdays and Thursdays from like 1 to 1:30.
Awesome.
So yeah, and it's also all open to people just from the public in general, because
Right.
one thing that Serenity House does too is we're tailored towards helping people in recovery and substance use disorder, and we are a resource center.
Right.
But we do also welcome people into our program who are just trying to recover from trauma. And
Right.
we're starting to get together a plan to offer some fee for service for people that might not necessarily need the whole recovery coaching piece, but want to come in for some Reiki or want to
Right.
come in for some Detox, so we're in the process of getting a lot of things settled. We've got a lot of big
Yeah,
ideas, big plans.
for sure.
So it's super cool. But yeah, that's what's awesome about our program is the actual healing piece,
Yes.
and I feel like if I would have been able to receive that kind of stuff when I was like going to counseling when I was younger and stuff like that, it would have helped me a lot further than, because I mean some things helped me, but it just, I don't know,
Right.
the getting the education of how the body works, of that we even have an energy field,
Right.
how that works, like all of this stuff. It really made it stick with me, and
Right.
it's not that it hasn't challenged me either. I've had a lot of things in my life in this 10-year journey that
Right.
could have sent me into a relapse. I've had, trauma and things like that myself, but I noticed once I got down the holistic road and I started becoming aware of the pain I was essentially causing myself. Like once you shine a light on that,
Yep.
there's no unshining that light.
You just keep
And
moving forward in the right direction.
yeah, there was a big moment for me where before I had my son, about a year before I had him, I had experienced a miscarriage, and that I I was in a horrible depression.
Right.
And that was about 5 years into my journey, and I just, like, I had been to a place that I hadn't been to in a very, very long time in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sitting there and looking at these pills I had got, and I just had the thought, I'm like, I could just start doing that shit all over again. I could just start taking these pills all the time again. Like, what's the point? But I knew that if I did that, I would be closing out any chances of that ever happening for me again. Because I also wasn't sure I could get pregnant with the endometriosis and stuff.
Right.
So it was a really, long, hard journey for me, not even knowing if I could have kids.
Right.
And then that happened, and I got so angry. I got so angry with, everything that I had been believing in, and
Yeah.
all of this. But there was still that spark where I had that moment, and I'm like, but I knew that I would be taking 100 steps back
Right.
and possibly never getting out of it if I decided to go down that road again. So I chose not to, and I chose to feel it out, and I chose to not know what to do with that depression, and I chose, to take that road because I didn't know where it was going to take me, but I
Right.
knew that choosing the other, I knew where that was going to take me.
Yeah.
So I had to choose the other one, and it ended up working out, and I do have my son now. And another thing for, processing these emotions and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the day that I conceived my son. I wrote a letter essentially to the universe. Writing's very cathartic, and a lot of therapists will even tell you to do that, write a letter.
Absolutely.
So I wrote a letter to the universe, and I chose to let my anger go. Like, I honestly wish I had a picture of this letter, but I don't. I wrote it all down, and I was basically saying that I wasn't going to be angry anymore.
Let it all go. Right.
Yep. And I burned it and I sent it out. And that was the night that I conceived my son. So it was just like as soon as I chose to let that go, he came to me. And
Right.
I have so many different events like that in my life where it's just like, this is not coincidence. This is not like, it's, I had a dream of my son several years before I had him. And the day I wrote that dream down was October 15th, and I had him on October 15th.
Wow.
It's just like, I could go on and not even necessarily,
right.
yes, and not even necessarily about my son, but just these different events that it just shows when you decide to see something from a different perspective, or to let something go, like you're letting that energy go to let new in. Like
come in. Yeah.
we damage ourselves so much by holding on to so many things, and we all have to do it in our time. I wasn't ready to let go until that night. I wasn't ready. I was conscious enough to know that that's what I needed to do, but I didn't want to. And that was my journey. And I spent a year in a really bad depression, but I wasn't ready until that moment. But as soon as I was, the universe gave, it back, or God, it's, and however you wanna.
I feel like with the holistic approach, it being still fairly new to most people, I feel like it is something that you could kind of start slow with certain things, and then,
yes,
like you said, you see the progression of things changing, even your energy changing. And I feel like sometimes that's, what has to happen.
Absolutely.
A lot of people to kind of believe that it can work. We're so used to, like you said, the medications or the traditional way of, doing things. But
yeah, and they can also be blended together. Like, that's another thing. You don't have to stop one way of things to start with that. It can just be that extra piece. Like, we have a lot of people that come to us that do go to NA or do go to AA, or on medicated assisted, like all of these things. And it doesn't mean that you just have to drop that side of things, but if you feel like you could take it a step further, or you feel like you kind of want to get to some of the root causes of these things, then yeah, start adding some of that stuff in. I mean, we can all benefit from some mindfulness, you know what I mean? Just that conscious awareness, and that connection within yourself, and there's so many different ways to go down with it too. Like, just start reading some books on it, and if you're really left brained and you need, like, to make the science and all that make sense, I'm not a scientist by any means, but something that really fascinates me, that I've listened to a lot of Audible books on, is quantum physics. Quantum physics will start talking about how the atoms and all that make up everything in the universe, how they're in constant vibration and frequency. And when we get down to that level of things, the way that we've been taught to think about how things work in the universe, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. And one thing that I like to tell people about too is there's something called the double slit experiment, which actually, have you heard of it?
Yeah, I had a little bit of counseling, and I'm really starting to get focused on, like, meditation, and my counselor kind of brought that up, as far as, like, shifting methods and different guided meditations you can use. So we touched on that a little bit, but you can go ahead and
Yeah.
elaborate.
It was something really cool when I found out about it. So essentially what it's saying, and that's something that anybody can look up to, the double slit experiment. And essentially is what that is saying is that the particles that make up the universe, that make up everything that we see, they act as wavelengths until they're observed. So
Okay.
essentially it's our observation that collapses particles in a way to even make up what we see. It's thought.
That is interesting.
Our thought creates the universe. Our thought creates reality.
And that ties into simple as that. The more positive you put out, you could essentially get that positive back, that kind of thinking.
Yeah, it's the give and take, being that open circuit of flow and giving and receiving, like it's all essentially the same thing. So, and there's a lot more even with quantum physics and stuff, where it's just like the more I listen to these books, I'm just like, it just makes sense,
Right. Right.
So yeah, that's something that kind of will feed the left brain if you're interested in that kind of stuff. And so just becoming more aware, more aware of your habits, of yourself, of your thoughts. Our thoughts have so much more power than we give them credit for.
Right.
Like I was just talking about, our thoughts literally make up our reality.
Yeah.
So the more you're having this negative self-talk or this negative talk about, other people, and the more you engage in that type of thinking and that type of activity, it's essentially more of what you're going to get back, because that's where you're putting your vibration at. Like our thoughts do become reality. So
that makes sense.
Just trying to be a little more conscious of that.
Right.
And it's a lifelong journey. I always tell people too, like, if you hear a lot of this death of the ego and that kind of stuff, and if you ever meet anybody that is like, I'm not saying that the whole ego death thing and where that originates from isn't true, but if you ever meet anybody that's like, oh, I don't have an ego anymore, you need to run in the other direction, because that is not how it works.
Right.
And that means that you are not being conscious of yourself. So, because we're all human beings, we're going to be human beings for as long as our lifetime is. So it just comes with shining that awareness on certain things. A lot of what we do at Serenity House and what we talk about is shadow work. If anybody's ever read Eckhart Tolle, he talks about the pain body, that kind of stuff. And that's a very interesting and vast subject as well. But that's where the true healing comes in, is shining a light on these aspects of ourselves that we haven't wanted to acknowledge, or that we haven't known how to process. Another thing, especially along the lines of trauma, that I found very fascinating. So another thing that I do in my massage therapy aspect of things is I specialize in what's called myofascial release, which is targeting the fascial tissue of the body. And that again is a whole vast subject, but it deals a lot with trauma and releasing trauma from the tissue. And one thing my instructor talks about a lot is, along the lines of storing trauma in the tissue. So what happens when we experience like a severe trauma? Okay, it could be a physical trauma, it could be an emotional trauma, but we all know our body has these ingrained protection mechanisms that we have. Our energy field has the same thing. And when we experience these traumas, especially severe ones, a part of our spirit will actually leave our body, because to fully process what was going on in that moment could have very well may have killed us. Like we couldn't experience it fully in the moment, because our body, our nervous system was in fight or flight mode, and we needed to figure out how to get out of there to survive. So processing that entire event is not what we needed to do in that moment.
Right.
So a part of ourselves will actually
Like
leave.
hang on to that.
Yes, and it will
Other-
kind of become out of body, if
Okay.
you will. And that's a defense mechanism that we have so that we can survive. But what we don't do is go back and process that out
Okay.
so that that part of ourselves can come back in. So we essentially stay in this fight or flight mode, and cell tissue memory and muscle memory, these are all also scientifically validated things. It will stay there until we fully process it out so that we can bring our full selves back in. So a lot of people, this is why they get stuck in certain pain cycles, like
Okay.
this chronic pain issue, right? And they're going to doctors and they're doing this and they're doing the other thing. And some things might help for a little while, but it comes right back. It's because our body's like a record player and it's constantly processing that out. And well, it's constantly reliving that moment over and over again is more what I should say. And so, but these aren't the things that we usually get addressed.
Right.
And so it's like this record that keeps playing over and over again in our subconscious and in our tissue, and we can't figure out what the heck's going on with us. So, you know, through my myofascial release, I mean, Reiki is also a catalyst for that because it can help with the energy body. Myofascial release also blends in the soft tissue manipulation, which is why, like me as a massage therapist, I've been able to take classes and stuff, and kind of help process that out. Again, getting that stuck stuff out so we can bring the new and the good back in. So that was that's also something that I love doing. It's
awesome.
amazing.
It is all very interesting, and I think, you know, like we talked about, it's helpful that there are so many different pathways now that someone could pick.
Yeah.
And even like you said, integrate, you know, holistic with more counseling or, you know, different 12-step meetings or what have you.
Yes,
all
absolutely.
Great to have in someone's toolbox. And I'm trying to think if there's any other questions I had for you. I really appreciate you doing this with me.
Yeah, of course.
It's so interesting to hear, you know, things from your perspective and how it's helped you along the way. And, you know, hopefully other people listen kind of, you know, if they have any questions or whatever. Obviously, you're at Serenity House in Flint. They can find you.
Absolutely. Just any questions, any, you know, wanting to try out any services or things like that. And yeah, I definitely want to iterate that it can totally be blended. You know, although 12-step wasn't a huge thing for me, I have looked at like the AA book because she's no longer with us, but we had a recovery coach there who was very much about her AA, and she shared the book with us, and I was actually really intrigued because, you know, how I talked about shadow work, actually a lot of what the 12 steps is analyzing those aspects of yourself. It's really a lot of shadow work is what's going on with the 12-step program. It's just not necessarily using that language, you know, sometimes having that can be that extra piece too. So yeah, and if it doesn't work for you, because I've known people who've had problems with it too. So that's always an avenue for people, and we're here for everybody. You know,
that's awesome. Well, thank you, Maciee, for being a part of this.
Yes, thank you for doing it.
We'll have to set something up again and go a little more in depth with maybe like another topic or whatever.
I would love to, because that's my informative information. It's the hardest part is tailoring it back, because it's like I could literally talk for hours in depth about this kind of stuff, and it's like, okay, you know, just trying to explain some things for people that might not know a whole lot, because I could definitely go super in depth.
Right. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate
Yes.
you doing this with me. Have a great night. Thank you again.
Well, yes, of
Bye.
course. Bye.